Mordor, a land cursed by shadow and fire, a domain where the black will of Sauron seeped into every stone, every wind that howled across its cracked and barren plains. Towering mountains, jagged and ancient, walled off this desolate realm, their peaks wreathed in endless storm and sulfur. Rivers of molten rock snaked through the land, illuminating the night with an ominous blood-red glow. The very air was thick with the scent of brimstone, choking those unfit to endure its merciless grasp. The land itself pulsed with dark energy, as if alive, whispering the echoes of torment and endless war. The great fortress of Barad-dûr loomed in the distance, its dark spires reaching into the heavens like the claws of a vengeful god. The ever-watching eye of Sauron casting its fiery gaze over the wasteland below. This was a land of war, where death was eternal and mercy was but a forgotten word. The legions of darkness gathered in endless hordes, their numbers swelling with each passing day. Orcs, crude and merciless, sharpened their rusted blades, their blackened armor reeking of decay and slaughter. Towering trolls, their thick hides scarred from centuries of battle, wielded weapons large enough to crush a battalion with a single swing. Orcs with their glowing yellow eyes and slavering jaws prowled the wastelands in search of prey, their guttural growls filling the air with dread. Yet, worse still were the horrors spawned from Sauron's twisted will, serpentine fell beasts, whose wings blotted out the dim light of Mordor's skies. And the dreaded Ologai, massive war trolls bred for carnage and destruction. Here, the skies were thick with ash, blotting out the sun, leaving only an eternal twilight under Sauron's baleful gaze. It was in this cursed land that the armies of darkness had clashed against the forces of men and elves countless times, waging war in an endless struggle for dominion. The land had been bathed in blood, the soil steeped in the agony of the fallen. But this time, the battlefield would be different. This time, the hunters were not of this world. The ground trembled, though not from the march of orcish legions, but from something else. Something unseen. Something ancient and far deadlier. A new kind of hunter had arrived, and the creatures of Mordor would soon learn fear unlike any they had ever known. High above the storm-ridden skies of Mordor, unseen by the wretched creatures below, a Yautja hunting ship emerged from the black void. The vessel was sleek and ancient, adorned with the battle markings of the Darkblade clan, one of the most feared and revered clans of the Predators. These hunters had traversed the cosmos, seeking only the deadliest of prey, and now they had come to Mordor, drawn by the raw, unrelenting violence of this world. The ship descended silently, its cloaking technology masking its arrival from prying eyes. The cursed land stretched out before them, a realm of endless war, a proving ground unlike any other. The Yautja saw the armies of Sauron below, hordes of orcs drilling under the watchful eye of their black captains, lumbering trolls sharpening their war hammers, and wargriders scouting the outskirts. The Predators had found worthy prey. One by one, the Darkblade warriors deployed, their forms flickering as they engaged their cloaking devices. They moved like wraiths, unseen, unheard, but ever watching. Their biomasks scanned the battlefield, analyzing the creatures, assessing their strengths and weaknesses. Their mission was clear: hunt the strongest, cull the weak, and challenge the very heart of darkness itself. In the great fortress of Barad-dûr, the disturbance had not gone unnoticed. The shadows whispered of unseen figures, of warriors moving through the night, striking unseen. Orc patrols were found torn apart, their heads mounted on pikes as a silent declaration of war. Wargs howled in terror, their riders cut down before they even knew what had come for them. Word reached the black captains, and soon the call to arms was sounded. The orc warbands gathered in the valley of Gorgoroth, forming a vast sea of iron and blackened steel. Great siege engines were prepared, trolls were armed with massive warhammers, and archers lined the cliffs, ready to rain down death upon whatever enemy dared to challenge the will of Sauron. The Dark Lord himself did not yet move, but he watched. He waited. Then, the slaughter began. As the orcs marched in formation, scanning the darkness, the first strikes came without warning. The lead captain, a towering Uruk clad in black plate, felt the sudden heat of plasma sear through his skull before he even had time to scream. His body fell, lifeless, his flesh burned away in an instant. Panic spread through the ranks as warriors searched desperately for their unseen enemy. The dark blade predators moved like phantoms, their cloaked forms weaving through the ranks of orcs, cutting them down with ruthless efficiency. Plasma casters lit up the night, burning through armor and flesh alike. Wrist blades slashed throats, spears impaled Uruks mid-charge, and combi sticks twirled through the air, slicing through entire squads with ease. The battlefield was a nightmare of fire and shadow. The orcs fought back, their arrows flying wildly, their blades swinging at ghosts, but their crude weapons found nothing. The wargriders charged, only to be ripped from their saddles by unseen hands, their beasts left howling in confusion before their heads were severed from their bodies. Even the mighty trolls, towering brutes bred for destruction, were felled. One by one, their skulls pierced by razor-sharp predator discs, or their throats slashed by the merciless hunters. It was not a battle, it was a massacre. The Black Captains of Mordor watched in horror as their forces were annihilated, as their warriors fell screaming into the dirt. This was no mere enemy, no army of men or elves with their shining swords and noble ideals. This was something else, something ancient. Something beyond their understanding. The Witch King of Angmar, the greatest of the Nazgul, stood atop a blackened spire, his wraith-like form flickering with malice. He turned his gaze to Barad-dûr, where the eye of Sauron burned with growing fury. The Dark Lord had seen enough. This was no longer a matter for orcs and trolls. This was a challenge that demanded a greater response. A deep tremor rumbled through Mordor as the skies darkened further, as the will of Sauron stretched forth, touching the battlefield. The winds howled, carrying his command. The Witch King raised his blade, and with it, a new darkness spread across the land. The air grew heavy, thick with dread. The ground itself seemed to pulse with a malignant energy. The hunt had drawn the gaze of the Dark Lord himself. The predators, their masks scanning the shifting energies around them, turned their eyes toward the towering fortress in the distance. They had come to challenge the mightiest beings this world had to offer, and their hunt was far from over.